anyone else been feeling lately like it's Rian Johnson's world and we're just living in it? It is a thing of beauty, and I have no complaints. Except, in all the acclaim for Knives Out and excitement for Knives Out 2, in all the full-throated defense of The Last Jedi against attacks from the worst kind of people, in all the film buff tide rising so far as to lift Brick, one movie from the Johnson oeuvre has gone drastically underappreciated. So I'm here to tell you why you should drop everything and watch The Brothers Bloom right now. If that's all you need, if you're ready, by all means, my child, go forth and go with God. At the time of recording, this movie is available free with ads on Plex, Vudu, Tubi, and Pluto TV, or for $3.99 US on demand from Amazon or Apple TV. I will take the hit to my retention if it means spreading the good news of our Lord and Savior Penelope. But if you need a little more convincing, or if you want to be the coolest kind of nerd and watch this video both before and after watching the movie, hey, stick around. This discussion will be spoiler-free per my standards of what constitutes a spoiler to the best of my ability in an attempt to sell you on just why you must watch this movie. Today, if possible. This video was sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming service, Nebula, when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. The work of Rian Johnson tends to be best described as clever twists on or sideways entrances to genre films. Brick is a hard-boiled, too-old-for-this-shit detective noir set in a high school. Looper is a sci-fi thriller made to be as visually unstunning as possible. The Last Jedi is a Star Wars movie that uses the universe of Star Wars to question the values and assumptions of a Star Wars movie. And Knives Out is a murder mystery that reveals a whodunit at the end of the first act and still keeps you on the edge of your seat right up to the final minute.
The donut hole has a hole in its center.
The Brothers Bloom is a one last heist con movie, but to distill its twisty sidewaysness into one pithy back half of a sentence would be both a disservice to the film and basically impossible without spoiling the journey. So we'll begin with the included trappings of the genre to be twisted and bent. The titular brothers have been running cons ever since their tumultuous childhood as troublemaking orphans shuffled from one foster family in one one-horse town to another. Mark Ruffalo's Steven is the mastermind behind the operation, the charismatic puppet master who will never rest until he can pull off the perfect con. Adrian Brody's Bloom, known only by his last name, is the reluctant partner, the sensitive one, the tortured soul who desperately wants out but can't help but keep getting roped back in. At the start of this movie, for what Steven swears is the last thing he'll ever ask Bloom to do, a plot to milk a retirement million out of Rachel Wise's Penelope, an eccentric recluse who, thanks to a childhood medical mix-up, has lived a life devoid of human contact aside from the recently deceased parents who left behind a massive inheritance. Bloom's job is to charm her into a steamboating, steam-training European adventure and out of a hefty cashier's check, Bloom's cut of which, Steven swears, he will be free to drink away along with the rest of his life in peace, as long as he doesn't mess it all up by really falling in love with Penelope.
The only real danger in this whole play is that you actually fall in love with her.
And away we go. The most obvious Rian Johnson-y, twisty, sidewaysy element is the setting, which is highly stylized, out of time, and fairy tale adjacent. The set is dripping with 1920s glamour, Penelope looks like she was styled by Mary Quant, the gang receive a telegram on the literal Orient Express, and cell phones are an established fact of the world.
She gave me her number when we were in Mexico, her cell.
Bang Bang has a cell phone?
Johnson talks in the film's commentary track about getting a lot of comparisons to Wes Anderson, which I can sort of see, I suppose, but the point of reference that comes up most readily in my head is Brian Fuller's procedural fantasy Pushing Daisies. It's not all the way in that direction, but it does feel like it's on that road. Like, on a scale from 1 to Kristen Chenoweth belting out Hopelessly Devoted to You in a pie shop owned by a man who solves murders by waking the dead and is in love with a woman he can never touch, The Brothers Bloom is about a 2, but it does register on the scale. This is most apparent in the movie's introduction, a 7-minute sequence I would describe as sepia-tinted if it were not so literally colorful, narrated by Ricky Jay in rhyming couplets. Laid out here is not only the brothers' nuts and bolts origin story in the first con they ever ran, but their emotional origin, every piece of character that will power the rest of the story. The inciting incident of Stephen's turn to crime is not garden-variety greed or even desperation, but the desire to build a world where his shrinking violet of a brother has the charisma to sweep the prettiest girl in town off her feet. His plot cons the townies out of an amount of money that barely registers for them, but is an immeasurable fortune to the vagabond Blooms. In return, the kids get a show they experience as so genuinely magical as to make them forget their lost cash entirely, and Stephen realizes that while they may not have gotten what they were promised, they absolutely got what they wanted. The piles of ice cream bars the brothers can finally buy are a nice bonus.
Let them melt.
But it's this feeling, this meticulous storytelling with real-life stakes that satisfies everyone involved that hooks Stephen. But of course, the one person left behind here is Bloom. Because what Bloom wants is a little unclear. Stephen writes the con on the assumption that Bloom wants the girl, but when everything falls into place just as planned, Bloom hangs back and lets her run ahead, the illusion broken by the reminder that he is living out a fiction woven by his brother. The adult Bloom is that rare protagonist who tells us precisely what he wants.
I want an unwritten life.
But in that extremely human way, where you get the hint that he may not actually be the final authority on his own desires. Stephen remains married to this belief that what Bloom really wants is a pretty girl to complete him, but for Bloom, something is just a little out of place.
You don't understand what my brother does. He writes his cons the way dead Russians write novels. And he wrote me as the vulnerable anti-hero. And that's why you think you want to kiss me. It's a con.
And this is the environment into which we introduce Penelope. Now, knowing this movie was made in 2008 and hearing my earlier description of this character, you might already be rolling your eyes to the tune of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And that's fine. You're allowed. But listen, if you didn't have the timeline of that phrase's coining and that trope's prevalence ready for review in hindsight, you just might think Penelope was the character who started it all, the original of whom the likes of Garden State's Sam, Elizabethtown's Claire, and Stargirl are Xeroxes of Xeroxes of Xeroxes. Between Johnson's careful writing and Wise's electric performance, this weirdo is an unquestionably real person. Penelope's quirks are extreme, but they are extreme because her reality is extreme. She does ordinarily under extraordinary circumstances. And as a result, her quirks don't stop at the point of cute.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm really bad at talking to people.
She is not entirely unaware of social cues, but it is clear that she is galumphing through them with an unpracticed eye, and when she appears adept, it is with an overwrought sense of drama that comes of having learned not from real life, but from novels.
Hey, where is this boat going?
She understands that there are certain things one does not simply come out and ask for directly, but she lacks the requisite subtlety to understand what she is supposed to say smoothly.
Oh my god, I'm just so horny.
Good night.
She is an adult woman who has never had a sexual experience with another human being, and her fumblings with Bloom are consequently unbearably sweet for how truly unsexy they are. But to Bloom, this is sexy. Their love story is not one of the paragon of perfect little creatures flitting across the path of this soulless husk of a man and bringing color to his black and white life, though he is depressed when they meet, and she does help him find a kind of carefree joy. But more importantly, these are two people who fit one another as partners. Penelope wants to break out and go on an adventure, and she needs a reason to take that first step out the door, someone who can be patient with her mores without babying her so far that they cannot also rise to the occasion of her wit.
This ship is called the Fidel, which is the name of the ship in Melville's novel, The Confidence Man. So that's weird.
And Bloom needs someone... well, I'm getting ahead of myself. While we are meeting our cast of characters, I should tell you about Bang Bang. Bang Bang is the coolest character in the movie and probably the baddest motherfucker in any room she ever walks into. Rinko Kikuchi gives a downright iconic performance in the grand tradition of literally silent partners in comedic teams, and it is impossible not to watch her when she is on screen. Bang Bang is also the only named character who is not white, and it is unclear whether the name she has is hers in any meaningful sense, or whether it was given to her by a pair of white men who assume that she cannot speak English, despite the fact that she can obviously understand what everyone is saying at all times, and there are clues that she probably could speak up in English if she wanted to. But hey, she makes stuff go bang. What more do you want from us? There is definitely at least some base level of awareness and care here. She is an explicitly Japanese character played by a Japanese actress and recognized specifically as Japanese by more or less everyone. She is framed as sexy in that she is gorgeous and effortlessly cool, but she is never sexualized, and when the movie peripherally engages with the men who perceive her as sexually available, possibly because of her race,
You know, I'm pretty big into anime.
it is abundantly clear who is in the wrong. She clearly has a fascinating backstory and active inner life.
I feel like I want to know more about her.
But her most central character trait is that she does not literally speak up for herself under any circumstances. And I am absolutely not a person who should be given a voice in the question of whether the fact that she's a badass and a cool fucker and clearly intended to read as a Harpo Marx type makes up for the submissive and docile Asian woman stereotype her characterization may unintentionally play into more than deconstruct.
This is my personal assistant. Yeah! And private masseuse, Mrs. Yingling.
Yingling like the beer.
Essentially, your mileage may vary. I'm not in a position to make a judgment call to what extent, and I absolutely do not blame anyone for not wanting to touch the question of their own basic humanity with a 10-foot pole while watching a movie that's supposed to be fun. I'm gonna say more nice things about the film now, but if Bang Bang sounds like your line in the sand, feel free to head over to the bar early, and I'll meet you there in 10 minutes and pick up your tab. Alright. This is a meticulously crafted script where you can really see Johnson playing with the kinds of planting and tracing of ideas that pay off so well in Knives Out.
Tastes like tinfoil.
So does real blood.
There's a running gag wherein Steven is terrible at card tricks and refuses to learn to be better.
If I do it enough, someday it's gonna work on someone and it'll be the best damn card trick in the world.
The second lengthy conversation Bloom has with Penelope takes place as she casually and flawlessly performs an intricate multi-step close-up card trick that, fun fact, Rachel Weisz actually learned and is actually doing in this shot. Why am I bringing this up? I said no spoilers, you silly monkey, but don't you want to watch the movie now so you can see why I think that's worth mentioning? I can't think of another movie that utilizes the potential of its background actors to the level achieved here. They are not texture, they are players. This little interaction is one of my favorite moments ever put to film.
You don't want out. You think you do, but you don't.
I am already on the record calling Nathan Johnson's score for this movie one of my favorites of all time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and up that to my favorite film score. Full stop. Nathan is Rian's cousin, who's worked on all of his movies, except for The Last Jedi. Williams. And I think he's a vastly underrated contributor to what makes Rian's movies so distinctive in that sideways entrance to the genre way. The Brothers Bloom gets a glitteringly jazzy score to match Stevens' shimmering stories, all clarinet and horn and piano and swung eighths with overtones of pretty pretty harp and undertones of a tense, dangerous string section. Taken as a full work, it is a grand and beautiful adventure in and of itself that is one of my favorite things to put on while writing a script or reading a book. From moment to moment within the movie, it grounds the storybook elements exactly as much as it lifts the mundane to the level of fairy tale. And it's the kind of score that tells you just as much when it chooses to do nothing, when it pointedly drops all the way out. The movie follows two main cons, and each has the point where it goes off the rails. And the contrast between what the score does and does not do at each of these moments tells the whole story of the film. It is a beautiful piece of work. This movie also, it scratches this itch where... Okay, the first time I got really into analyzing a film, like overboard, couldn't sleep, saw it 3 times in theaters and 4 more in the year after the DVD release, was Inception. I have a friend who's still in my life who, like, literally our entire relationship was built on the foundation of staying up way too late broing out about this movie over Facebook Messenger, picking apart that one crucial question. How much of this movie is really a dream? It was endlessly rewatchable because that question had endless possible answers, and each new inkling of a thought meant a chance to watch the movie all over again with entirely fresh eyes. The Brothers Bloom is, if you want it to be, that kind of movie. It's not intentionally ambiguous. I think the text supports that there is one single version of reality, and it's relatively clear what that is even on the first watch. But the question of who is conning who, at what time, and for what purpose is still deeply theorizable, if that's your thing, in a way that makes this movie read just a little differently each time around. Bloom is not only the protagonist of this story, but the limited perspective character. We rarely, if ever, hear from the other characters except when they know that Bloom is listening, and this is a movie populated by characters who are legendarily good at obscuring the truth. I'm gonna pop a few of my favorite fan theory lenses up on the screen. They are maybe a hair spoilery, so feel free to look away from the screen or skip forward to the next chapter mark in 3, 2, 1... Now, the number of possible tessellations, the number of lines of dialogue that feel deliberately written not only by Johnson but by the characters themselves to mean more than one thing, the endless implications spreading out from each possible lie, the absolute depths to be spun out of this one single sentence.
The day I can't use, the day I die, Bloom.
You will never run out of new pairs of metaphysical glasses through which to watch this movie. But like Inception before it, the reason this is so endlessly a thing to me isn't just that it can be churned for endless theories. A film theory. As I said, I do think there's one version of reality that is most supported by the text, and anything else tends to fall apart pretty quickly under any level of scrutiny whatsoever. But asking the question will invariably provide a deeper understanding of the heart of the story. Because the con isn't just a plot device, it's the whole damn point. The Brothers Bloom is, at its core, a movie about lies and stories. What is the difference between a lie and a story? Is there any difference? If there is a difference, does it affect their inherent moral quality? What about the lies and stories we tell ourselves?
It's not gonna be reproduction, it's storytelling.
It's a lie that tells the truth.
Stephen is a con man who sees himself as a grand storyteller, and the lies he tells his marks as ways to give them things they may not even realize they want and couldn't otherwise get for themselves.
This might not be something that you know, but they've all been about you. Maybe that's why they've none been perfect, because I've never been able to give you what you really wanted.
Penelope consciously and deliberately blurs the line between the objective reality of her world and the stories she tells herself about it in order to shape her tragic past into something worth having lived through.
I was the one telling my own story, so no, I don't feel cheated.
And Bloom, poor Bloom, feels like his whole life will continue to be a lie until he can escape Stephen's stories.
I've only ever lived life through these roles that aren't me. That are written for me by you.
He wants an unwritten life, he says, but maybe what he needs is to change who is writing it. Or maybe I'm just saying that. Go watch the fucking movie! Alright, so we all know what's gonna happen now. You're gonna go watch The Brothers Bloom, and then you're gonna want to come back and watch this video again so you can catch all my non-spoilery winks and analysis that will make a different kind of sense once you're in the know. So hey, what if when you came back you watched this video on Nebula? Because then you could watch it without ads and without this sponsor read, and you could be watching on a platform where cool people like Mia Mulder, Jill Barrett, Big Joel, and me can take risks and play around with stuff that's hard to package for YouTube. I don't know, I think you're probably a person who would want to support a project like that. I'm just guessing, but I get an energy. And hey, then, while you're on this roll of watching cool Brothers Bloom stuff, you could also take a page from Penelope's book.
I went through a phase when I was mildly obsessed with the Bolero.
And watch Bolero, a global hit, a positively delightful documentary that traces Ravel's Bolero through history and pop culture, from jazz, rock, pop, and techno music, to dance, to film, to sports, believe it or not. But where could you watch such a thing? On CuriosityStream, you silly goose! The subscription-based streaming service with thousands of documentary and nonfiction titles who like what we're doing at Nebula so much that they've set us up with a bundle. When you sign up for CuriosityStream using my link in the description, you'll get 26% off your annual subscription for a total of $14.79, and then you'll get a welcome email inviting you to Nebula 2. And that is a bundle, not a signing bonus. You get full access to both fabulous libraries of content for as long as you stay subscribed. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, with an extra special thank you to Andreas Evans, Exceedingly Lizzie, Ilona Concetta, LL Milktray, Michelle, Mimi McGann, Richard Lawson, Ronnie Rocket, and Sean Payne. If you'd like to help support these videos directly and maybe see your name up here with all of these lovely people, you can do that at patreon.com/Laura Crone.